Hey everybody, this is Chuck Marone with Strong Towns. I wrote an article about congestion pricing in New York City and New York City's congestion pricing scheme. And it got a lot of people on the website really upset with me. Because I started out by saying, the administration, the Trump administration, has canceled New York City's congestion pricing thing. And people got really mad, like they did it illegally, we're still fighting it. How dare you say it's canceled? Okay, there's a fight going on right now between the administration and the state of New York and New York City over their congestion pricing thing. I think that there's a couple interesting things worth noting and a couple of things that are true, but conflict with each other in our kind of red team, blue team paradigm. And I want to state both things because I want us to recognize that they both can be true at the same time. Number one, congestion pricing is a good idea. How's it going? Good? You guys having fun? Cool. It's a beautiful day, huh? Number one, congestion pricing is a good idea. We should be doing this. New York City should be doing this. There is not enough land in Manhattan to accommodate all the vehicles of all the people that want to conveniently drive into Manhattan. And even if we make, congestion horrible, people are still willing to wait in long lines to get into Manhattan, more people than the city can physically accommodate. The way you deal with this is to put a price on it. That is like the way you deal with this situation. I'm getting into water here. It's the most straightforward way. It's the most fair way. It's the most equitable way. It is a way to allocate it based on actual demand. Let me be clear. I think that the rhetoric here about, we're taxing suburban commuters, I get that, I understand that, but you're kind of assuming that suburban commuters have this kind of God-given right to drive into the core of Manhattan. We don't have a God-given right to fly to Manhattan, right? I congestion price on my airline tickets. If I want to go at prime times or prime places, I will pay more than if I'm willing to go at a different time in a different way. We congestion price a lot of stuff. The idea that we would do this with vehicles is not unprecedented in our economy. It's in fact something we are very, very used to. This is something that needs to be done. The second thing, however, is what they're going to do with the money. What they're doing with the money is giving it to the MTA, the Regional Transit Authority. And let me be clear, I think in theory, that's the exact right thing to do. I mean, the worst thing they could do is put this money into the general fund. That's what they do with speed cameras and that kind of thing. It just creates all kinds of really, really bad incentives. They're not doing that. They're doing the right thing. They're giving it, they're theoretically investing the money in transit. But here's the kicker, and I think this is the other thing that is true that we have to be willing to acknowledge. The MTA is a horribly managed organization. The MTA is up to here in debt. They have, for decades now, chased large projects and federal appropriations for large projects in a way that you could say induced them, or in exchange had them take on lots of local debt. That local debt is squeezing their budget in a way that is resulting in huge service cuts, huge maintenance cuts, neglect of their system, lower service, bad outcomes. The current proposal is for the MTA to, again, expand their system more, take on more debt, and the way that they are going to do this is have the congestion tolls pay for that debt service cost. This is pouring good money after bad. And I'm not arguing that the expansions that MTA wants to do would not be good or not needed. I'm sure that they are. I'm saying this is the worst possible way for them to be funded, by having the system itself take on debt. And let me say, there's this argument about should transit pay for itself. I have views on that are unorthodox, that nobody, Team Red doesn't like, Team Blue doesn't like. The reality is that 80 cents out of every dollar that's collected at the fare box now in New York City goes to paying debt on prior transit projects. That is how you squeeze out a budget, because really what the fare box should be doing is paying for your operation and maintenance. That's what it should be doing. It can rise and fall with demand. Your maintenance costs rise and fall with demand. You can improve service, have a lot of money to do really good things if you use that fare box revenue in that way. What we have done, similar to what we've done with like the post office, if we just larded the MTA up with massive amounts of debt, said your fare box revenue is supposed to cover this debt, other sources are supposed to cover this debt, and what happens is it squeezes those O&M funds because they get squeezed out by the debt service. Adding more debt is a really bad thing. This transfer of money and congestion pricing to the MTA is a really bad thing because it enables or it continues this system without reform. What we can say, and what is true, and what we should not be afraid to say, is that the MTA needs to be substantively reformed. Now, this falls in this gray area of kind of Team Red versus Team Blue, right? Everybody on Team Blue feels like they need to defend the MTA because the Trump administration, Team Red, is exploiting the fact that the MTA is poorly run. They're saying to suburban voters, hey, why are we taxing you and your commute? You already paid for this through your taxes, which is also not true. You paid for these highways through your taxes. Why are we taxing you again to pay for a bloated agency? Team Blue is saying, hey, don't look behind the curtain at the bloated agency. That agency needs money, needs funding. This is a good way to do it. And by the way, suburban commuters, you're being subsidized. Both of those conversations are partially right, and both of those conversations are partially wrong. We should be able to say that congestion pricing is a really good thing. It should happen. We should also be able to say that giving the MTA more money to borrow, float more bonds to put themselves deeper in debt will squeeze out O&M costs, reduce service, and actually make transit work worse in New York City over the long run. And that's not in anybody's interest.